And Tom says that that poverty used to mean hunger, inadequate clothing, and protection against and inadequate protection against the elements, and that's what poverty was when Thomas Sowell and I were young. But
Yeah.
it's not poverty today, is it, Tom?
Oh, good grief, no. I mean, most of the people who are below the official poverty line in the United States have color television, microwave ovens, and own
True.
either a car or a truck. And we
4Ks in
didn't
their
call
wall.
that anything like
So
poverty
poverty,
when I was
my
growing up.
Oh,
the
that's
definition of
right.
poverty has
And
just
in
changed so
some
much.
cases, according to a study by the Heritage Foundation, I think 14, 16% of people who are called poor, who fit the census definition as poor, 14 to 15% have two or more cars.
Oh,
That's
yes, yes.
insane.
When I was doing research, I found that
That's insane.
that hundreds of thousands of people with incomes below $20,000 a year live in houses costing $300,000 or more. Now, as of the time I discovered that, I was living in a house costing less than $300,000.
Now, I think that one of the wonderful things about your writing is that, well, you're saying that some of these things that we observe.
I think poverty is more a state of mind, right? It's poverty here. Poor people make bad decisions. That's why they're poor. Okay, they don't educate themselves in finance. That's why they're always in the same state monetarily. And when I used to live in New York, I would just do door-to-door sales, and even I would go to the project to do door-to-door sale. And when I will go in to do the sale, these people will have 3 plasmas in their house with, I mean, with food everywhere. I mean, these people were living the life. And by the time when I was living in New York, I was making less than $20,000 a year, and I was not considering myself poor. I remember just driving the MTA buses, and I have like an Android Galaxy, like the first one, and I remember me going to the through my phone. Some kids just coming into the bus, and they all have phones, iPhones. I'm telling you, iPhones. And these kids came from the projects, and they all have iPhones in their hand, and they're poor. And I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, why, man? This is our poor people have more money than me, and I didn't even consider myself poor. I didn't even get. I qualified for. If I wanted to, I could qualify for food stamp. I didn't want to. It just to show you this just a mental state.
In United States are not unique to United States, and they're not by no means unique to Black Americans. And and this book that you talk about in this particular column is called "Life at the Bottom" by what is it, Dalrymple?
Theodore Dalrymple. He was a
Dalrymple.
doctor in a predominantly white, low-income neighborhood in England.
Yeah, and you're saying that he's talking about the same kind of things about whites, lower class whites in England that we can say about the lower class blacks and whites in the
Interesting.
United States.
Yeah, and I think it may be easier for some people to understand what's really involved, because so much of what is done in the black community that's counterproductive is explained away as a legacy of slavery or Jim Crow and all that. And you see the exact same things happening in these lower class white communities in England, where none of those things apply. One of the most striking is the beating up of children in school by their classmates when the children are trying to get a decent education. In fact, Dalrymple, as a doctor, has treated many of these kids because they need medical attention. They've been beaten up that badly.
Yeah.
And when that happens in the United States, it's called they're accusing the black students who are trying to learn of acting white. Well, the whole racial thing is gone in these lower class white communities. So really, this is not something peculiar to the United States, but it's what happens when you have a welfare state that allows people to live a counterproductive lifestyle, and that welfare
Take all the
state is
incentives out.
accompanied by an ideology that accepts, apologizes for, even glorifies that lifestyle.
Yeah, it glorifies and promotes that lifestyle. And also we saw some of it in England in Britain during the riots of last summer.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love people who say, well, these riots are a result of anger at poverty and so forth and so on. And there's never been so much anger as there is today when there's so little poverty.
That's right. And you see the rioters in sometimes in designer clothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one
Interesting.
thing back in the days when poor people were desperate and would steal bread. In all these riots I know about, I have never seen anybody break into a bakery and steal bread.
That is a good point. And I remember the riots that happened in 2020. Foot Lockers, Nikes, all these stores that have, Walmart. They have material stuff. They had nothing to do with food. Were the most prevalent target for these riots. And we know in Chicago, some of these riots they just focus on CVS and Walmart. It was insane. It was insane. So they have a good point. The question is it literal poverty? Like people are dying because they don't have food, or they don't have money, or is the mentality that drive these things?
They're stealing television sets and Xboxes and all this
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely.
Now there's another very interesting article that you have in your book called
Gonna be
the
very hard to fix
older
this.
Budweiser. And it goes back to the way back to the Habsburg Empire, where the Czechs and Germans, people of Czech ancestry and people of German ancestry, speaking different languages, got along very well up until what?
Up until you got a rising class of Czech intellectuals who resented the fact that they had to learn German in order to get ahead. Now, this they blamed on the Germans, but they should blame it on history. The fact is that the Western European nations had written languages centuries before most of the Eastern European nations. Mainly because the Germans conquered Western Europe and the Romans conquered Western Europe and brought Roman letters. So it was centuries later before they began to have letters for the languages of Eastern Europe. Well, what that meant was that if you wanted to learn, science or any serious subject, you had a better shot at it if you learned some Western European language, in this case German, rather than be confined to the local language.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the
Huh.
Czech intellectuals, they started telling the people, the Czechs in Budweiser, in Budweiser, saying there had to be cultural identity and
Oh,
and
that
keeping
that, that
only-
is really locking people in a blind alley. I mean, we call it multiculturalism today. But to me, multiculturalism is like the caste system. It means it confines you to where you happen to have been born, regardless of how many opportunities there are in the world for you to advance by learning something else beyond where you were born.
Yeah, right. And we see that in United States as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
Okay, so we have all this evidence, but what are we gonna do with it? That's my question. The evidence is clear, right? We have a lot of data. What will be the next step? If we have all this evidence, what could be the next step? It seems like it's logical. A lot of these data that he's presenting, a lot of these historic facts. For what will be the next step? Am I wrong to ask that question? Let me know in the comment section below.
it's led by the intelligentsia in our country on college campuses. They even have vice presidents for diversity.
Oh gosh. Oh yes. I mean,
What?
I mean, spending
Is that a real thing? Vice President of Diversity?
spending millions of dollars all over our country at universities, driving up the cost of the university by having all these offices, nonsense offices that did not exist yesteryear.
That's true, but the vast amount of money that they waste is really the least of it. What they really waste is more valuable is the
That is
time with the
insane.
students who, after all, are young and inexperienced. They may think it's wonderful to sit around and rap about racial issues or glass ceilings and all that kind of stuff. But none of that is going to allow them to have a marketable skill when they leave that institution. And this is the problem. This is the problem in a number of countries, now not just in the Habsburg Empire, but around the world and into the present time. That wherever you have a newly arising intelligentsia from some group that is poorer, they typically specialize in the softer subjects. They do not learn science, math, medicine, all that kind of stuff. They learn all kinds of stuff that's much easier. And then when they get out into the world and discover there's absolutely no demand for that kind of stuff, then they become identity merchants.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the. I think it's one of the things that you're to be complimented on in the sense that you bring an international perspective to many of these problems that we face as a nation. That is, affirmative action is not only a disaster in the United States, but it's a disaster in India. It's been a disaster everywhere. It's been tried in Sri Lanka and all these other places. And I think that we gain
Because what happened is when you take the incentive or just get to point A to point B, right? There's something about the human spirit that does not give their 100%. Why is if you have to give affirmative action to certain groups, you're admitting that that group cannot, by their own terms, succeed to that standard? You see what I'm saying? You catch my drift?
something if we recognize that, these problems, these social problems or economic problems, are not unique to any particular culture.
Oh, absolutely. And most of the countries where they've pushed preferential policies for one group, they argue as if what's something peculiar to that particular country is the reason. For example, in New Zealand, they say, there's the Treaty of Waitangi in 1843, and that's why the Maoris deserve preferential treatment. And here it's another rationale. In India, it's another. But whatever the rationale, the patterns are just painfully similar.
That's right. And a scientist would not go from New York to London and saying, well, the law of gravity operates differently in London because of because of the Roman conquest.
Yes.
Hey, Tom.
And ironically, the Roman conquest is what put England on the map.
Oh, that's right. They took them out of the caves.
Oh, that's right. And Churchill, obviously a British patriot, nevertheless said, we owe London to Rome. The British didn't build London. The Romans built London.
Hey, Tom, we're going to take a short break, but after this, we're going to take a few calls.
Oh, that was nice. That was nice. One of the best two American icons giving some insights in regard to poverty. I think there's a couple things that we can extrapolate from this. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section below. Is affirmative action or helping certain groups doesn't equate to giving progress in the future. Secondly, intelligentsia might be an enemy to progress. Now, those two combined, you might get a result of a non-action environment. And the reason is because maybe the problem is not one thing, maybe it's the other thing. You notice a lot, when I notice a lot of debates about intelligentsia, is that they move a lot of the pole. They move the conversation way too much, and they never have a straight answer at the end, right? So it never gets to something. It always need to sit down. We need to sit down and talk about these things. And maybe it's because this thing that we cannot reach is systematic racism, whatever, right? All these things that we cannot really tangibly reach to fix. Oh, maybe this group, maybe this group need to be more hold accountable. Well, hold on, we cannot do that because systematic oppression, blah blah blah. What I'm getting from all these things is that the more higher the hierarchy of intelligentsia, academia, the less incentive is seen to fix problems. I don't know why. I just simply don't know why. And poverty, of course, it sounds like it's just a state of mind. If you're having the same problem in England with, of course, Europeans, maybe we have to check that out. I guess it's the same here in the United States. Some places where you still have Caucasians and they still act poor, and they still have 4Ks, and you still have in the in the ghettos, with the black community as well, where they still have 4Ks in the rooms, stuff like that. So it's not about food or resources to carry your day on. It's not about that. It's more about the state of mind. That's what I'm getting from this. Let me know in the comment section below. I might be wrong. You guys give very good insights when I really don't understand certain things. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section below, and I'm going to really appreciate it. Thank you.